Trauma gets trapped in the body, and especially around the psoas muscle, because the psoas muscle is our first responder in stress. It's the muscle that contracts to either protect our internal organs or help us to run or kick our way to safety. Now, in this session that you're about to watch me see, I'm working with a veteran, a professional soldier who risked his life many, many times in Afghanistan and Iraq. You won't see his face. I didn't include his face to preserve his privacy. You will see as I get close to his psoas that he starts having really strong emotional reactions. That's not totally uncommon or unexpected. But I want you to pay attention to what his reaction is, what you can see of it, and also how I respond to it, and the soothing that I do throughout this session to help him to release that and feel in a safe way, to create a safe container for him. Now, he came to me with all kinds of pain, knee issues, hip issues, all this stuff. Of course, he didn't say work on my psoas, but I know that he's got trauma and that he's got some PTSD and he's got some stuff trapped in there. And I wanted to give him that release in a safe container. So I think you're gonna find this really interesting. I go through a whole session with him. I want you to pay attention to the way I work with him, the cues that I say to him, and how I allow him to have his movement. I don't immediately stop. I do check in with him and ask him, do you want me to stop? Is this okay? And he has me keep going. Sometimes I take breaks. I really want you to pay attention to watching this emotional reaction as I get near his psoas and how I hold that container for him. Truly fascinating. And I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to the countless veterans that are living in extraordinary PTSD, that need this work, that have risked their lives for the preservation of our country. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to all of you who work with these people, and let's check it out. And I'm going to invite you to take a nice big breath in your belly. Let your belly get really full. As you exhale, the whole body sinks into the table. And then I come right to that edge of rectus abdominis, kind of right in line with the belly button. Let my hands be flat. And then I'm going to slide my fingertips toward the belly button. And then when I'm ready for some pressure, I just lift the wrist. And then we can find the main trigger point in the psoas right there. Do you want less? That's fine. Because the psoas is kind of our EMT and stress response, it often carries a lot of tension, and it wraps around the lumbar spine. So it often can liberate emotion and a lot of sensation through the whole body. But his body's doing a beautiful job letting me in. Notice I'm not pressing anymore. My hand is just sinking in. Great job. I'm just going to stay here another moment. Yep. All the way up into the neck, right? Yep. And so this pattern of one hip resting higher than the other affects every other part of the body. So when we're shifting this system, they could feel things all the way down to their feet. They might feel some stuff coming up in the neck, and that's totally fine. We just give them the space to feel those changes. Thank you, body. Great. And so we've done a couple of squeezes along the obliques, which get thick when that hip lands high and stays high for a long time. Then we went in and did some psoas, and now I'm going to work across the body to get into iliacus. So I just swing around to the opposite side of the table. Shift that lighting a little bit there. And then I want to just reach right across. And I always like to do a little bit of clearing of the fascia. And there's often a little, right at the kind of apex of the front of the pelvis, right? So here's ASIS down here. We don't want to be in front of that. We want to be up above that. Or else if we're in front of it, we're not in any, we're just in the inguinal ligament. So now I'm going to anchor in right here. Notice that I sink down toward the floor and I'm kind of using this hand to pull the tissue away. And I'm just going to hang out here for a moment. And I'm not even really using pressure right now. I'm just letting his body get used to the idea that my thumb is deep in his pelvis. Yeah, you okay? So again, psoas and iliacus are stress response muscles. So there's often emotion tied up into them. And it's very, can bring up a lot of emotion. Yeah. So I'm just going to do some soothing because he's having some emotion come up. And that's great. Thank you, body. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for keeping me safe. Okay?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to slide back. And I'm going to go up higher. I want to kind of find the apex of the pelvis. And I want to angle into there. Yep.
That's enough.
Yep. So that's enough. Great. So we don't have to push harder. I have very little pressure actually in my thumb, but there's a lot of tension here. So I'm just going to hold that. Bringing your attention to the back of your body. And you can tell your brain and your body, right now we're safe. Thank you, body. Right now we're safe. You're doing great. Great job. And see how his body allowed me in. I didn't push anymore. I didn't sink anymore, but I'm much deeper into that side of the pelvis than I was before. And then we do some more soothing. Can you feel how that's smoother now through there? Yeah. Doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do some gliding down the belly, the other side. Thank you, body. Thank you for protecting me and keeping me safe. So those big hip flexors want to curl the body up or get ready to run. Great. Okay. And then we'll get ready to do the lower points. We can pause. Do you want to pause?
Maybe just for a second.
Sure. I'll get you a tissue. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
It's your protectors, right? Okay. So before I really start going into the lower trigger points in the psoas and the iliacus, again, that work can really bring up a lot of emotion. So I'm just going to do some steady compression, right? This is trauma-informed work. So steady compression is deeply soothing. to the nervous system. And his body wants to kind of react. And so just holding that there. Yeah, focusing on the exhale. Nice breath in. Long, slow exhale. So I'm going to teach you a little breathing practice right now. When you exhale, instead of just breathing exhale, you're going to go voo until you can't make any more sound or have no breath left, okay? So go ahead and do that as you're ready. And again, nice big inhale. So when you're working with a client that's having a lot of emotional release, give them the space to do that. Let them take time to do that. Let their nervous system, kind of let you in. If it's not letting you in, then there's no point, right? Then you're just wrestling. So we just take a little time with a little bit of steady compression. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Bringing your attention to the back of the body again. And then also think of something beautiful. Think of maybe some pretty flowers or your family, or something that brings you joy. And think about a nice moment. So I'm just holding this compression. Not a lot of pressure. There's some twitching in the body as we're releasing some big stored energy. Okay. You okay for me to proceed?
Yeah.
Yep, great. Okay. One of the things he said was that this right leg tends to turn out, and that is very common when in the high hip side, because as the pelvis raises, the femur gets distorted in how it's laying in the pelvis. So it's normal for it to turn out more. Doesn't mean their piriformis is necessarily causing that. It's really about the hip being high. So you can see here I can kind of grab that little mountain of the quads, and right in this valley next to that mountain below the inguinal ligament, now I have access to the lower point in the psoas and the iliacus. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start to sink in there a little more deeply. And I'm going to go straight down into that point right there. Okay?
That's
Exciting?
that's a lot of pressure.
Uh-huh. Is it tender in there? Does it just feel like pressure?
No, it's tender, but it needs to be let go. It's
Yeah.
like that's,
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're just right at the edge of this mound of the quads, in that little valley right there. And I'm sinking straight down toward the floor, and I'm trapping the lower points of the psoas and the iliacus. Check your glutes, make sure they're not squeezing. And really purposefully letting the glutes get really soft and the hamstrings get soft. You're doing great. Very nice. Okay. And we're going to move on and soothe.